As I introduce our student commencement speaker for the Division of Undergraduate and Interdisciplinary Studies, it will doubtless seem that no one else could have been considered. She, after all, is the recipient of the University Medal, which was established in 1871 to recognize the most distinguished graduating senior across all departments on the UC Berkeley campus. This is the person whom we are honored to have deliver the commencement address today. Yet our program in Interdisciplinary Studies also had two other students nominated for the award, Leilani May and Kamyar Jarzada. Leilani worked in original Arabic sources to produce what recent Guggenheim winner Nazar Al-Saad described as a beautiful interpretation of the street art produced in Tahrir Square. Kamyar worked in Dari, Persian, Turkish, and Arabic to write an ethnography of Afghan refugees suspended in time and awaiting resettlement. He was recently quoted in the New York Times as a leading authority in the field. Caitlin Kimmel also received highest honors on her thesis. The Director of Disability Studies, Sue Schweik, underlined that Caitlin's research on patients born with congenital heart problems and whose life trajectories are profoundly uncertain from birth has already changed lives. Adam Cohen wrote a truly outstanding thesis comparing the remedial programs for students in the CSU system and the CUNY system. Professor David Kirk was surprised how much he learned from Adam's original research, calling it the best work he can remember in at least 5 years. Our speaker today and the recipient of the University Medal is Rebecca Maria Peters. Before I note the stunning set of accolades our student speaker has received in her 2 short years at Cal since transferring from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, I want to first strike a personal note so that you know something of the character of Rebecca as well. On Cal Day, our director, Peter Solins, asked Rebecca to present her research. Not only did Rebecca do a masterful job, she prepared on her own initiative a detailed roadmap for incoming students on how they too could find sources of funding for original research and encourage new students to dream big. It was an act of generosity and inspiration to the Cal community. Rebecca, a 4th generation Cal student, bleeds blue and gold. At this moment, it became clear to me how passionately Rebecca wants to make the world a better place and the sense of responsibility she has and thinks other Cal students have or should have. She wants the social research and policy work to be done, and Rebecca knows that if Cal students do not take the lead, no one may. Rebecca simply embodies the spirit of the greatest public university in the world. Rebecca's own research is on water and women. The time women have to spend procuring and boiling water, the dropout rates for girls from schools which do not have easy access to the water and sanitation that girls need as they begin to menstruate, the effects of possible dehydration on pregnant women vulnerable to premature delivery. Rebecca has established that our data collection methods are not sensitive to girls' and women's unmet needs around water, and thus our policy is not corrective of fundamental problems. Rebecca will become a leading voice in policy circles in the years to come. In fact, she's already engaged, presented her thesis findings to the Director of Water at the United States Agency for International Development. I was at a celebration for Rebecca's winning the University Medal and faculty from across the campus, from environmental management, from energy and resources, from the Bloom Center on Global Poverty, from international area studies, and of course from ISF, all came to celebrate this remarkable scholar and activist. A scholar who holds herself to the highest standards, who invites criticism, who tests her ideas with others, who looks for new ways, who hears almost inaudible voices of suffering that others are eager to ignore, and who leaves people working with her inspired and more dedicated to their respective professions. We were also there partly in appreciation of what Rebecca has already done. She's founded and directed the Pachamama Project, a partnership among NGOs to augment water access in 12 rural schools in Bolivia. Rebecca has led the Berkeley Water Group, a student-run think tank on global water, hygiene, and sanitation issues, and founded a decal on water and human rights that she taught for 5 semesters, educating over 130 students. Rebecca's been awarded an array of honors, including recognition as an Udall Scholar and Berkeley Law Human Rights Center Fellow. As a Truman Scholar, she will spend the summer working with the World Bank in Washington, D.C. She's preparing for a graduate program in England as a Marshall Scholar, Berkeley's first since 2007, where she will study water science policy and management at Oxford and poverty and development at Manchester, and she hopes to return to Berkeley for a doctoral program. My first response to hearing of Rebecca's winning the University Medal was simply this: UC Berkeley honors itself by honoring you, Rebecca. Please welcome our commencement speaker for undergraduate and interdisciplinary studies and the University Medalist in 2014, Rebecca Peters.
Dear family, friends, faculty, and distinguished guests, welcome, and thank you so much for being here. The most eastern border between Costa Rica and Panama, bordering the Caribbean, is kind of a joke. On either side stand uniformed armed guards staring each other down while paperwork is processed in a severe Cold War era building. The actual border between the two countries is over a trickling, muddied river crossed only by a rickety railroad bridge. 30 feet across, and you're in a different country with an entirely separate history, culture, and traditions. But politicized, policed, and militarized borders between countries are created by humans, and as such are socially produced boundaries that are maintained by historic structures of power. Are these boundaries not unlike those between academic disciplines? But this social construction of boundaries for countries and disciplines is not something that I knew. It's not until I came to Berkeley that I became able to make sense of it all. I grew up in the progressive corridors of Los Angeles, where I witnessed the ways that cooperative natural resources management could positively empower people to engage with community decision-making processes. Collaborating with my community over water resources management resonated with me on a personal level, and I plan to dedicate my career to restoring waterways as an environmental scientist. However, during my second year of college at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, I went to Guatemala to develop water treatment projects with a rural community as part of an appropriate technology course. While I saw the improved health outcomes that clean drinking water could deliver, through conversations with community members, I also learned that science alone would not be enough to comprehensively address the complex social and political barriers faced by the 2 billion people without access to safe water and sanitation. I applied to transfer to Berkeley to seek an education that would better prepare me to confront the lingering questions I encountered while in Guatemala, including how I might acquire the interdisciplinary skills necessary to inspire broader social change and understand social justice. I quickly felt at home within this program. American studies, religious studies, media studies, interdisciplinary studies, and cognitive science all find their home in our department. I found that it is only in the pursuit of such interdisciplinary academic rigor that new possibilities of positive social transformation can be forged. Our courses of study have allowed us to transcend the single discipline approach that predominates at other institutions, Stanford, demonstrating why crossing such artificial boundaries is worthy of scholarly effort to create future generations of critically engaged thinkers, dreamers, and doers who are both well aware of the problems we face and well equipped to deal with them. Our programs of study are each profoundly aspirational because they encourage us to ask big questions. What is social justice? What will the world look like in 100 years? Who is the earth for? What is the responsibility of our scholarship? What will happen when the system breaks? Such questions require us to imagine the world and the self not as they are, but as they could be. My personal aspirations when I transferred to Berkeley were initially much more tempered, shaped by the limited technical approach of my academic training. While traditional disciplines can teach us to make sense of our experiences and to categorize our knowledge into comprehensible boxes, such disciplining also creates limiting boundaries, and these boundaries have significant discursive and material effects on the ways we understand our roles as students, scholars, and humans. In Marx's critique of Feuerbach, he writes that, thus far, philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. My interdisciplinary courses at Berkeley quickly transformed the narrow scope of my approach to understanding water issues from a purely technical, interpreting perspective to a broad unraveling of the political and social forces at work that inform who gets access to safe water and who does not, giving me the interdisciplinary tools necessary to change it. Merriam-Webster defines interdisciplinary as involving 2 or more academic, scientific, or artistic disciplines. And while the interdisciplinary approach may seem obvious to us, on many university campuses, no one dared even whisper the word interdisciplinary. To do so was to express a blasphemous interest in working across well-established, hardened boundaries between traditional, entrenched disciplines. However, such non-conformity to acceptable standards is the best, and dare I say, the only way to confront the gravest challenges we face today. The most pressing social problems we face can only be addressed through interdisciplinary perspectives with the power to disrupt and to transform the status quo, and UGIS is one of the few precious places at one of even fewer universities that allows us to do so. I've come to understand the world through the interdisciplinary lenses of feminism, anthropology, and public policy that color the way I diagnose and propose remedies for complex social problems and produce knowledge capable of confronting structures of power. And I should note, it was through ISF that I first learned that feminism is not a four-letter word. It is not about a struggle to end male domination or ensure women have equal rights as men. In the words of Bell Hooks, feminism is a commitment to reorganizing society so that the development of people takes precedence over imperialism, economic expansion, and materialist desires. While our courses here have taught us the importance of such critical theory, we've also learned that being armchair academics or weekend activists is not sufficient to address complex social problems. As Berkeley students, the mandate of our public education is to engage the global community and strive to do our work for the benefit of others. As Indigenous Australian visual artist Lilla Watson expressed, "If you come here to help me, you're wasting our time. But if you've come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." Our research and fieldwork demands engagement with contradiction and discomfort. Such applied scholarship is crucial to keep us embedded in the interactions that constitute meaningful relationships, improve public health, and community building while informing the abstract theories behind the social processes that we will shape in the future. Social justice is the highest ideal of university education to me, and it is only by considering the tensions between seeing Berkeley as it is and what it could be can we establish who we are and what we stand for, including the shared awe, excitement, anxiety, and intimidation of being graduates of Berkeley. However, we must remain self-reflective about our privileged positions as now formally educated scientists, advocates, academics, and public service leaders with interdisciplinary degrees from the best public university in the world that have allowed us to transcend traditional institutional barriers between disciplines. The spirit of the free speech movement and resulting student engagement concerned with holding our institution, our government, and each other accountable to principles of social justice firmly established the conscience of Berkeley and bestowed us with a distinct institutional personality. Such engagement indicated how young scholars like us could speak back to our disciplines and became a historical conjuncture requiring us to reconsider traditional academic disciplines through which expertise is manufactured. Student movements, often connected in networks of transnational solidarity, fall somewhere between practices of dissent and hopes for a differently imagined future. Continuing these moments of solidarity in light of persistent austerity, crushing student loan debt, structural violence, and pervasive environmental damage will be required of us going forward in the face of daunting external forces threatening the public character of this university that we hold so dearly. I'd like to return to a question I posed earlier that I believe we will all encounter in our post-Berkeley lives and careers. What is social justice? The National Association of Social Workers defines social justice as the view that everyone deserves equal economic, political, and social rights and opportunities. And the adoption of such language in institutions is a good first step. But when I work in the Salinas Valley with California Rural Legal Assistance, and I see low-income communities of color, predominantly migrant farm workers, consuming water with nitrate and arsenic in it, I remember that injustice is not something that happens elsewhere, like in Guatemala, and I know we have a long way to go in our scholarship, in our policies, and in our country. Dr. Cornel West, a philosopher, activist, and academic, says that justice is what love looks like in public. If we want to see such justice embodied in our careers, in our scholarship, and in our university, we must remember that it is only through novel combinations of disciplines at an institution like Berkeley and in interdisciplinary programs like ours that such radical possibilities of transformation can be forged. Our pursuit of originality, of integrity, and of insight in our academic research, career paths, and lives reflects the Berkeley zeitgeist, a collaborative and forward-thinking approach to engage scholarship and global problem solving. Recognizing the profound, yet not insurmountable, gulf between ourselves and those we serve going forward should solidify our commitment to dedicating our post-Berkeley lives to continuing the legacy of engagement of our predecessors and not be discouraged by the huge challenges ahead of us. I'm deeply thankful for the opportunities afforded to me as a student in the Interdisciplinary Studies program here at Berkeley, and I'm looking to the future with eyes that are humble and eager to confront the greatest challenges of our time. I feel incredibly lucky to graduate from a college of peers with hope in their hearts, social change in their veins, and justice in their minds. So as we go forward, remember the words of Indian poet and author Arundhati Roy. Our strategy should be to confront empire, to lay siege to it, to deprive it of oxygen, to shame it, to mock it. With our art, our music, our literature, our stubbornness, our joy, and our sheer relentlessness, and our ability to tell our own stories. Through our interdisciplinary programs, we are now prepared to tell our own stories. We are empowered to dream bigger, we have mobilized our imaginations, and we have activated an undeniable force of highly educated people ready to address the most serious social problems of economic inequality, environmental degradation, and political disempowerment. You are ready, we are ready. To the class of 2014, thank you. I'm tremendously grateful and humbled to have learned with you and from you during my time at Cal. You give me hope. Congratulations and go Bears!